What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Here we have the Powkiddy RGB20 Pro, a Cyberpunk-inspired retro handheld. And today we're going to find out if this offers us something from the future, or if it's just the same old lame thing from the past. Let's take a look. This here was brought to us from our friends over at Mech DIY. They have really been supporting the channel, especially lately. Do yourself a favor, go down the link down in my thingamabob, go check them out. There is a discount code for Mech DIY. I'll put up here on the screen. It is a Retrospect 16. Pretty sure you can figure out what that discount gets you. Use that on checkout, and you should be good to go. Right now, actually, they are having their Black Friday sale as well, so some pretty good deals anyways. Let's take a look at this bad boy, RGB20 Pro. I wanted to look at this for a while just because it just calls to me. I'm a huge fan of Cyberpunk, so this is kind of the deal. They did send me a 128 gigabyte memory card. We do have our origami accordion. Yep, still plays music. Get that out of the way, get this out of the way. There is a charging cable in the bottom of the box, which I honestly stole because I needed to charge this before I could do the review. And it's white, in case you're wondering. And here we go. The RGB20 Pro. Pretty fancy. I like it. Very pro. I like it, I like it. Throw the card in here, and we'll get all this crap out of the way. Alright, before we get going, we will go over the I.O. like we always do. We'll start at the top, like always. We do have our OTG port. We have a hole right there for a Type-C for OTG. We got a hole right here for power and charging. We also have a hole for HDMI out, which is awesome to see. A handheld with HDMI out. That's how you know that this has a 3566 in it, because I think every handheld that has one still kept the HDMI out port, which is phenomenal. On the back here, we do have our bumpers and triggers. They don't have a ton of travel, but they feel nice, and they actually have enough stiffness to them where you're not going to accidentally press them. Take some notes there, Ambernick. Take some notes. Actually, lately they've been doing pretty good, but still. I do kind of like how clean the back is. I think they did a really good job. Powkiddy's been getting better and better with their design and their quality. So, I mean, this is pretty awesome. Some of the things you're going to see on the back, too, which I don't know why they didn't put these where they were supposed to be, but they actually layeled all of the holes on the back. So any hole that you have on here, so if you need your memory card hole, it's right there. See how far away that is? That doesn't make any sense. They could, look at all that room, right? They could have put it there like every other one, but they wanted to keep it clean. Put it on the back. You do have your headphone hole. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But yes, your OTG, DC, and HDMI. On your left-hand side over here, we do have a hole, as we just saw, for our game cards. And then on the right-hand side over here, we do have a hole for our operating system and or games. My games are on that one. You can do it however you wish. On the bottom here, we do have a 355, no, just a 3.5 hole. Can't talk back to it. But you have a 3.5 hole down here for listening to the audios. And on the front, the star of the show, we do have a Wi-Fi adapter. So we do know that there's Wi-Fi in here. Powkiddy so often doesn't give you Wi-Fi that when they do, they decided to make a handheld just to show it to you. This entire handheld is focused around telling you that it has Wi-Fi. So there it is. It's right there. We do have our volume buttons, which are obnoxiously loud, as well as our start and select. These tactile switches they use are a little stiff, but they'll do the trick. We do have our face buttons, have a decent amount of travel. They don't get stuck underneath the clear screen, and they do not have any resistance, which is phenomenal. All right. Here we do have our D-pad. This is a decent dish on this D-pad. We've seen some that are more, some that are less. This is more of a retro-inspired dish, which is good for fighting games and things like that, because you do get a little bit more of an angle. And because this D-pad does get really flush, let's see if we can get this on here. I don't know why I didn't do that with the buttons here. Let's do the buttons first. Okay, so there's your travel with your buttons. Okay. Our D-pad gets pretty flush, but does not go underneath, as far as I can tell, anywhere on here. But having a good dish on here will actually help. All decent D-pads have a dish on them. This one just seems to be a little bit more aggressive than most, which is fine. And again, when they sit more flush, you do kind of want a little bit more of a dish. That way you get a little bit more pushing on here. Where, like, say you want to do an angle, you're more able to be able to get that angle as your finger gets stuck on the actual screen itself. We do also have our speaker hole right here, and then we do have our Switch-style Joy-Cons, which are inset pretty well. I mean, they're pretty almost flush with the D-pad, actually. Let's take a look at that. Actually, they are maybe flush with the D-pad and the face buttons. Everything here is pretty much flat, so they did a really good job with that. Unfortunately, they're still Switch style, and I think that putting them in a dish like this might limit their usability, like how far that they can go. So we might have a short throw on these joysticks, but we'll find out. And we have R3 and L3 right here. Pretty awesome. We do also have some LEDs on the front here. These are for your power and letting you know what's going on. And then we do have our speaker hole right here in the middle. And it sounds phenomenal having a speaker coming at you. This is inspiration design right out of the RG353 VS. They're the first ones to do this. Lots of them done it since then, but it works really well. That's the place to have it, not on the bottom, definitely not on the back. Put it right there in the middle. Had the space, works out great. We're going to fire it up, and we're going to go through the specs here real quick. Our RGB20 Pro here is running Linux. Mine came with Ark. Some are coming with Rocknix, which makes you know that Powkiddy didn't get permission to use the operating system on these, and it's still not running a functional operating system. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into this, but that means it's not optimized for the device, which is slightly concerning, except for Powkiddy continues to do this, and they usually get fixed within a week or two. We do have a 3.2-inch IPS 1024 by 768 display. That makes it a 4:3 display, but the pixels are crazy on this. So we're 1024 by 768. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but this display is being used right now in multiple devices, so there is a group buy somewhere, and we can talk about that as we go on too. It does have an RK3566 quad-core 60 GHz processor. It has 1 gig of LP DDR4 RAM, dual SD card slots, which we already looked over. It says it supports up to 256. I guarantee you can put a 512 in there. It does have Wi-Fi. It shows it off. That's the whole point of the device. Bluetooth, 3.5 headphone jacks, so you can listen to those sweet, sweet tunes, or just your games, whichever you want to do. 5,000 milliamp battery. They say it lasts 10 hours. I mean, maybe if you're playing NES, you might be able to get 10 hours out of 5,000 milliamp battery. I mean, this isn't using a ton of power, so it honestly probably could get 10 hours out of it. I'm not going to know that for sure, and I have some thoughts about that battery. Anyways, its charging is Type-C, and it's 5V 2 amp, which it takes 2.5 hours to fully charge it. I charged it overnight, and we are currently at 72%, and I haven't used it, so okay. And it does have outputs with the OTG and HDMI like we looked at before. All right, let's dig into it. A couple things to note. You're supposed to come with a bunch of fractures in this front. They call the glass, it's plastic, but there were supposed to be fractures in there that they couldn't get out from when they made it. I don't have any. So as far as I can tell, I don't, and if I do, they're definitely not bothering me because I can't find any. I know that was a big concern when these first came out. One reviewer had mentioned it, and I have none in here. If I'm concerned about anything, honestly, it's getting dog hair behind this thing. I don't know if you have a dog or a cat, but their hair somehow gets through every orifice of every device you own, and I could see a dog hair or something in behind here. That would bother me more than a fracture in an inexpensive handheld like this Powkiddy. Now, I know what a lot of you are wondering was, will this play NES? Like, oh my god, seriously? I just started. Will this play NES? And I have to be honest with you, it does it pretty well. Oh my god. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does it terribly. Do I not know how to jump? Did I forget how to jump in this game? I honestly haven't played this Mega Man game since I was a child. But I thought, hey, it'd be kind of fun to play. Yeah, okay. I don't really, trying to remember it. It's kind of like Mario. You kind of remember how to do things as you go. Apparently, I just like to get landed on, though, so... Oh my goodness. Oh, look at that health bar. Yeah, there, look at me go. Oh no! I can't do it. I can't do a old school game like this, apparently. Alright, well anyways, that's not what we were going to get into. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this does have ArkOS on it, the device that I received. Some reviewers are receiving one with Rocknix on it. That to me tells me that nobody knows what operating system goes on it. I have looked on both websites. Neither of them have an official build for it. When you do ArkOS on a device like this, anything ArkOS 2.0 or later, you can put up pretty much anything, and then you just go do it, updates for the device. I tried it. It does work. It does update to the device, but it's definitely not made for it. Things like N64 are not optimized for this yet, which is really, really sad. I could go in and do it myself, but this is just a first, initial look video. Once I make my full review video, we'll fix some of this stuff, but I'm just going to show you right now. So we already know a 3566 can play Cruis'n USA, no problem. They do have to be optimized for it though, right? If you're missing optimization, it sucks. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is right now. And I've tried the different cores or emulators you can use for this. None are optimized for it, so it's not like they just accidentally put the wrong one on and they have it optimized somewhere else. This should play just fine on here. It doesn't. And I put the FPS counter up for you just so you can see. It gets to an average of about 20 to 25 out of 30. So here we're at 21.23. It's probably about where it actually averages, but it doesn't ever hit 30 FPS, and it is pretty choppy. And as long as you have the audio off, it's not terrible, but you do feel like you're playing in slow motion because, well, you are. So this game should work. And I've tried it on all the different cores. I've tried it on even running the standalone emulators. You can't get it to work anywhere. If you do want to change how it's working, you can just hit select and then go down to the metadata for it. So if you find a game that you want to actually screw around with, we're running on the RetroArch core, but we can go through and change it. I've tried it on Rice, which is typically what makes these work, and Rice is not working because it's not optimized. I've tried it on every option we have here. It just does not want to come through. Probably wouldn't try to run this on RetroArch 32 because this is a 64-bit system, but it is an option that's on this device. Again, you can tell it's not optimized specifically for this handheld, but that's not always a bad thing, and we always get an update within the first couple of weeks that'll make it work. So by the time you would get this, if you were to order it, I'm assuming that you would probably get it. It would work. You'll know soon because I'll do another review on it probably before that happens when I have a little bit more time with the handheld. Couple of quick things for it. Chargers are picky. This thing is, all Powkiddys are really picky with chargers. This might be the pickiest one I've ever had. The charger that came with it doesn't normally work either. I had to make sure that all the voltage, everything was exactly right, and then it charged to 80%, and that was after charging overnight. So the 2.5 hours to a full charge thing, I don't know if I really understand that because it made it to 80% overnight. I did play with it for a little bit before we got on here, but not really, just getting it set up. We already used 10% of the power since I started filming this video. So the 10 hours is a stretch. We'll call that a stretch goal. The other thing that I don't like about it is it doesn't have a menu button, which a lot of Powkiddys don't, or 3566s in general don't. This SoC typically doesn't have a menu button, but some companies do put one on, and I feel like it needs one. I keep feeling like this is the menu button, but it's definitely not a menu button. It's some kind of LED that never turns on. I don't know what it's for. I've never had it turn on anyways, but it's there. But I feel like that should be the menu button. And these switches are so loud that once you get into a game, you're going to be fine. If you're in bed or something, these are okay. They're a little loud, but they're decent. But if you get into where you need to change the volume or anything like that, that goes with saying that also if you're in bed and you want to play this, the screen gets very bright and very dim. This screen on here is absolutely phenomenal. And it would go to reason that this is being used on multiple devices that are coming out right now because the TrimUI brick that's releasing right now also has the same screen on it. So I think we're going to see more of this screen, and this is a phenomenal screen. Now it is only 3.2 inches, so it's not huge, but it is a great looking screen. Powkiddy a year and a half ago, I would have not even wanted to test this, but now the build quality on this is phenomenal. I also figured out where they got the inspiration for this handheld. Let me see if you can figure it out. So here we have our Powkiddy RGB20 Pro, and here we have our iPhone. This is also made out of plastic. So similar design, similar plastics, kind of had the same aesthetic. I think Powkiddy might have jacked something from the old Apple iPhone C from back in the day. Believe it or not, this used to be my work phone. I went from this to, after this, I got an iPhone Max Pro. So I went from this little tiny thing for work to a ginormous phone. One thing I do want to say about this is this might be one of the most comfortable handhelds that I have played with in a very long time. And the reason being is it feels like you're holding a cell phone. And it's also smaller than a cell phone. I know everybody thinks this thing is like huge, but here's my phone. Yeah, it's much smaller than my phone, so not a big deal. But it is like holding a phone, because when you play games on your phone, you are like this, right? And you're playing games and whatever. But then when you use this, it's the same thing. It's more comfortable even, because instead of being down at the bottom like you are on a phone, actually everything's kind of moved up. And I think that was a great placement for these joysticks. This was a genius idea. I know they wanted to show off the Wi-Fi card, and I know like that's kind of what's going on here, but in doing that, they created something great by putting the joysticks exactly where they need it. And you have the right amount of separation between the joysticks and the back shoulder and trigger buttons, that when you hold it, it's natural and comfortable. Now, your fingers are going to cross on the back. There's no way around crossing your fingers. Because the device is so narrow, your fingers are going to cross. But they do on a cell phone too, right? So it does feel like they took that inspiration from a cell phone and they put this together, which is fine. A lot of people like gaming on phones, and this feels very natural to that. Unlike a cell phone, you do have your trigger buttons built in, and you do have your joysticks right where your thumbs would like to rest. Now, I find myself playing without the joysticks a lot, which is fine. I think that's, retro gaming in general. Naturally, depending on how I have my hands, they either want to rest here, or if I put my hands closer, they want to rest here. And I think they did a really good job of spacing them, where depending on how you have your hands, you're still comfortable either way, and everything's going to land the way that it needs to. Now, the volume plus and minus button being on the top right here, they needed to switch these. I don't know where you put the volume buttons, but these, when I'm gaming, I use these to start and select on accident. I always think these are start and select, and they're not. Now, Powkiddy did take some advice. I don't know if I can actually get this on the camera or not. They have the volume in the correct order for once. This is the first time that they have minus on the left and plus on the right. I don't think they've ever done that before. So they actually have the volume in the correct order, which is freaking crazy. All these years I've been reviewing Powkiddys, and they're always backward. I'll show you an example. All right, so if we look at this, plus and minus, our volume is backward. So this is the first time, I can't think of any other time that they've actually gotten the volume correct for us over here in the Western world. In the West, we're known for doing the volume in that direction, but a lot of places in Asia and stuff, they don't do it the same as we do. It's very more natural now. You can actually use the volume like it's supposed to. I don't know why I'm so excited about volume buttons, but it really is something that's always irritated me about Powkiddys, and they finally got it right. There's a lot that they got right on this thing, and that is just one of those things that they got right. Now, I know there's likely to be a question about the size of the bezels on this bad boy. Wow, I forgot that I could use my my joysticks. I think that the bezels here actually look pretty good. I think it's actually kind of part of the aesthetic. Now, I'm sure it's built into this screen. I haven't actually uploaded any footage yet of the TrimUI brick, and I will get around to that. But the way that they designed this, I believe, just added to the aesthetic and also gave them that spacing they needed in order to get all the controls into the right places. And yes, this will play Dreamcast. So it won't do N64 very well right now with optimization. I think Dreamcast will even get better, but right now it plays it pretty flawlessly for the most part. I mean, this is one of the harder games to emulate on Dreamcast, and it's chugging right through. So I wouldn't be too worried about Dreamcast emulation on here. Just because I'm not good at the game doesn't mean the game is playing poorly. That's just me and my terrible playing skills of this particular game. Or just any game in general, whatever, however that works. Before we wrap this up, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up, because Powkiddy never puts a vibrate feature in their handhelds, and I think they went all in on this thing. There is a vibration motor you can see through the clear plastic screen here on the bottom, which is the only reason why I knew it was in there. If you do want to activate that and you are using ArkOS, just go into the menu by hitting the start button, then you go into advanced settings, and ArkOS actually has something for this. Because the RGB30, everybody was adding vibrating motors to it. You can look down the thing, Bob. I'll put a video of how I updated my RGB30 and put a vibrating motor in it. But the last thing on here, or one of the last things on here, is optional rumble motor. So I turned it on, and it does do rumble when you're playing games, which is great. Now, the kicker is a lot of retro games didn't have rumble built in because the controllers back then didn't have rumble, but there are ways to add rumble to some of those games as well. I think we're going to button this up right here. All the systems through PSP play really well on here. As you can see, Dreamcast plays well on here as well. Sonic is one of the harder games to emulate, so it does do a very good job. The only system I really had any issues with was N64. Some games played okay, but it's really not optimized yet, so as we get some optimization for this, I think that that's going to get knocked out of the park. The RK3566 traditionally does a very decent job of playing N64, so it's not something that I'm worried about as things progress forward. I'm excited about this. I might have to order some more colors because there is a lot of options for it. And this is definitely going to be a conversation starter. It's so much better than I thought it was going to be. I know that sounds bad, but I really kind of thought this might be a flop. It's just not. It's so good. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing it is caring. It also helps grow the channel. It's the #1 driver for subscriber growth on this channel. Then once you're done with that, you do have a couple of videos up here on the screen that YouTube chose for you to watch because it thinks that you're going to like them based off of what you watched previously. I don't know what they are. YouTube chooses them on their own. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.